What's up everyone? I am super excited to put together this quick video for you to talk to you about the 2 surveys that we are going to ask each of you to complete for ODCC. You may be wondering why we have 2 surveys. So the first one is the standard on-deck onboarding survey, which is more administrative, logistical information capture to help us give you the best possible experience. The second one is all about you. We're excited to partner with Charlotte Crowther from My Snapshots. And we've been working behind the scenes to develop a special survey to help you measure where you are now as a course creator and where you are headed. And it's called the Course Creator Coefficient. The Course Creator Coefficient is your measure of your ability to deliver transformations at scale by teaching on the internet. In it, you'll be asked to rate yourself on a series of proficiencies that we've gone back and forth, making sure that this completes the overall picture of what it takes to be a course creator. Some examples of this are how good is your ability to structure your ideas in a learning order that makes sense for the learner and offers different tracks and multiple pathways for them to complete your course. How good is your ability to choose a platform and design your community in a way that optimizes peer-to-peer learning? And how good is your ability to attract, engage, and convert an audience in order to prime them to buy from you? So once you've rated yourself on the proficiency statements, there is a more qualitative section, which is designed as a visualization. And in it, we're going to ask you to think about what success looks like for you, to really go deep into that. What might be the challenges and blockers? What do you look like in 8 weeks if you've had a successful program? What happens if you don't develop these skills that we're going to be teaching in this program? I really encourage you to spend a little bit of time going through these type of questions and answering them as truthfully and as thoughtfully as you can with lots of reflection, because this is going to give us all the tools we need to make sure that you get the transformation you want. At the end of completing the Course Creator survey for the first time, you'll receive this beautiful report which will show you visually where you are on your course creation journey. You're then going to get the opportunity to complete the same set of 20 proficiency statement ratings at the midpoint of the course and at the end. And what you're going to see is your evolution as a course creator, and also the areas that you want to work on moving forward after the course is done. So I am super excited. As a quick reminder, we've got 2 surveys. The first one is pretty quick, 5 to 10 minutes, and giving us all the sort of administrative and logistical details that help us understand the whole cohort. And then the second one is all about you and your ability as a course creator. I'm so excited to see your responses. Let's do this. Hey, what's up everyone? I am going to record a bit of a deeper dive into my Course Creator Coefficient. So I am super excited about the value of this. I found it incredibly valuable for myself, and I'm excited for each of you to experience this as well. So the way I set up my one, this is what you're going to see at the end of, we'll have 3 surveys, right? And you'll see your progress through that. So to put together my one, I transported myself back in time to 2 previous moments, and then the final one is today's score. The first one is April 2010. This was 4 or 5 months after, 6 months after I came to America from Cape Town in South Africa. And I had been working at KPMG, which is a big global consulting firm, in a learning and development role for about 5 years at the time. So I was sort of just getting started. I was pretty good at facilitation of workshops, and I was just starting on the journey of understanding how to create the training that I'd been delivering back in South Africa. Then the next one, the midpoint, is when I had just started my business, Curious Lion. So that was about a year after I'd started it. And in beginning of 2017, I started that. So for almost 5 years now, we've been creating digital training courses for clients like Pinterest, PagerDuty. But back then, it was still very early days and didn't have such cool clients. And I was still learning very much about the business side of what is true for course creation or running a business, a service-based business as well. But at that point, I knew a lot more about learning design. So you'll see that come through. And then this one is today's score, which shows that I'm fairly proficient in a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about, some more so than others in the cohort. And it also shows that there's room for improvement. And that's kind of the beauty of this, is there you get a very visual representation of where you need to improve. So let's dive into a bit of the detail here. Okay, so the way we've grouped this is it's in 5 categories, which map to the 5 learning tracks that we have in ODCC. And you can see basically starting at 12 o'clock and moving across four segments is so business model, marketing and launch, partnerships, affiliates, and social proof. Those are the first 4 categories in this learning track, and then we'll continue around like that. So right away you can see that I'm most proficient over here. So curriculum structure, student mindset, content development, presentation, performance. That's obviously the learning architecture piece. Student experience, this is the first large scale online course that I'll be running. And so I definitely have things that I'm learning currently and will continue to learn. And obviously right at the beginning, I'd never done anything like that. So I was right down at a 0. And I think what's also interesting is if you look back in my history, it showed that I was, always pretty strong in this area based relative to where I am now. But where I, especially when I was back at KPMG, had absolutely no knowledge of the marketing and business side of it, of things like mentor programs, course operations, and all that, which is about scaling an online course. And so those had to improve rapidly, and thankfully those do, or those did. So yeah, let's talk through a bit more of these. I can give you a bit more color to it. One thing I'll say here, what's super important is it is subjective, of course, but it's still relative. So what I found useful is that as going through this is, I look at one, right? So the first one, we started here for a reason, because I think that's it makes the most sense as a starting point. And even if you have a course already, it's worth going back to this and validating it again and seeing, is this the right approach that I've been taking? So when I go through these, I put a score for these, and so I'm at a 9 over here, at a 7 for marketing and launch, a 7 for partnerships and affiliates. And I sort of go through this whole thing once, put all my scores in, and then go back and look at it and go, well, okay, if I'm a 10 in curriculum structure or a 9 in content development, how does that compare relatively with teachers' mindset or student admissions or things like that? And so that was quite helpful. So kind of go through it once, put all the scores you think in, and then look at that relative performance. So let me just talk through some of these in a bit more detail. So the first category is monetize your knowledge, which is essentially what course creation is. The business model is all about identifying a problem worth solving, testing your hypothesis around that, validating the need, and choosing the right course format and strategy for your life and business. There's no right or wrong answer in terms of format and structure, from evergreen to CBC and everything in between. And so this is all about that. And so what you ask yourself here is, how confident are you of being able to do that? And you can see right at the beginning, I was pretty low in that. Had an idea back at KPMG of a problem worth solving, and we were helping auditors get better at their career. But I had no real clue. We did needs analysis, so we were validating the need. But in terms of course format, strategy, structure, that was still pretty much lacking there, and that jumped up quite a bit from when I became a business owner. But then my perspective changed, and suddenly we were dealing with clients' needs and clients' course formats and strategies for their businesses, and so this wasn't fully up to where it is now. So the depth of different options and understanding what works for a whole range of different clients over the last, a 10-year, 11-year span, has bumped me up right away to a 9. So then marketing and launch, I'm not going to go through these in all of them in super detail, otherwise this video will be probably an hour long. I'm going to pick out some of the key highlights. I think it'll be an interesting exercise for each of you to reflect on these questions and all of these proficiency statements and think about what it actually means to you. Like I said, it is a relative scale, so it's helpful. There will be some of that variation when we compare to cohort averages, but you'll get a lot of personal benefit out of it, and there's enough of a standard deviation of error there, I think, to justify comparison. I mean, a small enough standard deviation there to justify comparison to others, so you can kind of see how you're tracking with the overall cohort average. So let me just talk through some of the high-level things. So monetization is, identifying the problem with solving and validating that. Building an audience, super important. So attracting, engaging, converting that audience, developing a strong offer, writing good sales copy, all of that kind of stuff, super important for course creation. That's not the only thing, that's not the only way to grow an audience, and so partnerships and affiliates become very important, and another tool in your arsenal. And then of course social proof. So how can you reliably capture, first of all deliver transformations, but capture them and get them out to others, so that they can see what a great job you're doing. And so this is you really need to be leading with this, because you could have the best course ever, but if you don't have an audience to sell it to, no one's going to get transformed. So that's why we start with that. The teacher's mindset, the learning architecture, the first of the learning architecture pieces, is all about inspiring trust in yourself as a teacher. So what is your credibility? How much do people believe that you're the right one to take them to that transformation? Curriculum structure is then your ability to structure your ideas in a learning journey that makes sense for students and includes multiple tracks for different learners of all different levels. Okay, so then we've got content development, which is your ability to create content that captures attention, introduces relevant concepts, and shows how concepts relate to each other. So this is all turning your ideas and your curriculum into assets, content assets. And then presentation performance. So much of it relies on your ability to present your ideas and to convince people that they should follow you, and to inspire transformation. And so here we talk about the ability to lead a class, which could be a class if you're not doing live presentations. It could be video. Your ability to inspire on video, and lead with presence and poise to deliver a performance. Student experience is all about thinking about it from the student's perspective. So here we switch, and it does overlap a little bit with some of the learning architecture pieces, but learning design is all about making your curriculum structure stick. So once you've got your curriculum, you've developed the content assets, how do we design them in a way that makes that learning stick? And here's where we really get into transformation and the 3 Ps that I talk about, and all of those good things. Student admissions is about finding the right student, developing criteria to select them, and thinking about that in the context of your community, and then also the scholarships and sponsorship programs that you have to provide ways for those that can't afford it to enroll. Communication begins before your cohort or your course starts. It continues throughout, and it continues afterwards. And this is about making sure that people know what's expected of them, where they can find all the information they need, all of those good things. And then progress tracking is really this, right? It's your ability to give students ways to track it's your ability to track the engagement levels and learning progress of your students and give them ways to do that themselves. And we'll be sharing a lot of great ideas of how to do that in the course. And then so peer-to-peer learning is then, once people are in session, how have you set up your community so that's the platform and the structure in a way that optimizes peer-to-peer learning. Then the community management is how you run that community. It's defining the culture, establishing core values, that really fosters a way for students to get to interact with each other and develop relationships with each other. Accountability is such a key component of any course these days. How have you developed structures to allow your students to get accountability? So that could be from accountability buddies, it could be from checking in with you one-on-one if that's reasonable to do at the scale you're at. Basically it's all about how do you get them to take ownership for their learning. And we do emphasize actually this not relying on you. So we'll be talking about a lot of ways on how to go about this that doesn't rely on you. And then the last piece of this is deliberate practice. So this is where the prompts to action, one of the 3 P's, comes in strongly. And this is all based on the work of Anders Ericsson, which this concept of deliberate practice. So how do you currently give ways for your students to develop tight feedback loops to accelerate their learning? Getting peer-to-peer feedback, reflection, and all of that doesn't necessarily rely on you. Yeah. I was going to say that's where mentors come in, but we actually have a separate category for that. So the last piece is scaling, which mentors is a key part of. But the first part of scaling, and if you have a look, for my one, I think course operations, that's probably one that I'm the lowest on right now, because it's not something that especially with Curious Lion, right? So if you look here, this one would have been I think it's a 3, and then when I was back at KPMG, it was right down to a 0. We haven't had to set up and run our own courses. We were creating courses for clients at Curious Lion, right? So this April 2018 score is pretty low. I've since working with course creators, and then most recently working with the team here at On Deck, have improved that a lot. But I know that's probably my biggest improvement area, is figuring out how can we automate and develop SOPs and processes, and how can we just make things more streamlined so that we can scale, take on more students, run more cohorts without killing ourselves. Mentor programs is, to me, your ability to scale your impact through mentors that are able to basically create a space for people to talk about the things that you're talking about, and to answer questions, and to develop some vulnerability amongst the student body. It's really hard to do that in live sessions with you, especially at a course with a scale like this one, 150 people. The mentor sessions, where it should be 30 to 40 people more like it, is a perfect place for that, and that's definitely what you should be thinking about as you start to scale your impact. Then we start thinking about ongoing value to students. So as your course ends, how can you keep them in your ecosystem by still providing valuable content that people will be willing to pay for? And so this is something that let's see, membership. Yeah, still pretty. It's on an 8 right now for me. I think this is something that we're going to be exploring in this cohort as we start to figure out what it looks like beyond cohort 1. And then lastly, something that I got to spend a lot of time learning how to do as a business owner back in April 2018 is this ability to affordably scale your business by hiring a course manager, freelancers for key areas, and how to go about that. What's the first hire you should be thinking about? What's the next one, and how do you scale operations that you've put in place in all these other categories? So I mean, if you look at, again, just to go back to where my chart filled out, a lot of these latter ones, in the early days when I was an employee at a company, I wasn't thinking about building a team, membership, mentor programs, operations, that kind of stuff. There was other people who were responsible for that, and I had to quickly fill that out when I first started my business. But look how much I had to improve at that point. I look back, and marketing even worse, right? Marketing, even as a business owner, I knew nothing about that when I first started, and so I spent a lot of time from April, so this 2018, 2019, really learning the ins and outs of marketing. Took a ton of online courses,
and learned about email segmentation and all that good stuff, became a better writer. And so really kind of filled this out. You can almost see, this kind of expanding out here, and this part here really also expanding. And so in this area where I was quite strong was something that I've just sort of built on and have really kind of found my specialization. And I think our ability as a business with Curious Lion, and my ability as a coach to course creators, is really honed in on helping them structure their ideas and find gaps in their understanding, or not in their understanding, but in leaps of understanding that their students wouldn't see, to help course creators figure out what that learning journey should look like in a way that makes sense for the students. So that's kind of, I think, what I would consider as my superpower. But what you eventually end up with is this fantastic wheel of expertise, which we've boiled down for you into a course creator coefficient, which is a score out of 200. We put it here as a percentage. And so you get to see this evolution, over the last 11 years, how much I've improved and really where to focus on next, as I look to fill that out to a full 100%. So closing thoughts from my side is take the time to really reflect on each of these. Be honest with your responses. Be modest with your responses as well. I think it will help you reflect on where you should be spending your time and what the type of people you want to connect with when you start the fellowship, the questions you might have for me and for my team and the guest speakers that we have. And then I would love to see you all post this in the Slack channel, share this on Twitter. What I'm going to do is screenshot this section here, share that on Twitter as a way just to kind of hold myself publicly accountable. So I look forward to seeing all of yours, and let us know if you have any questions.